All right. Welcome to our next podcast. I am really excited to have Karen Walters here. Actually, Karen and I had a chance to work a couple years ago on some cool stuff and strategy and change management and learning and development. But Karen has since branched off and started her own business. Actually, you kind of been doing that prior to even us working together. But a lot of great HR work, a lot of hiring. People is like your business, and I love that.
Mhm.
But today we're going to talk all things interviewing skills and things that you should look out for, things that you should ask, maybe not ask, those types of things.
Mhm.
So but before we do that, I want to hand it over to Karen as typical, and I want to have Karen give us a little introduction of herself, her background, and her business that she's in right now. So
Mhm.
Karen.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the invitation to do this. My background. So, if I go way back, I had no idea what I wanted to do with myself, and I fell into the HR world, which was convenient because it's a great fit.
Yeah.
So, I guess I have about 35 years of human resources experience. Half of it is a really large IT company. I really
Mhm.
just grew up there, learned all things HR from compliance to workforce development and all
Yeah.
of the being kind of an HR generalist. And then I the NFL, we have an NFL team here in Atlanta called obviously the Atlanta Falcons. They actually needed an HR person, and that was about 22 years ago. And so
Wow.
I spent 20 years of my life there. And that was awesome because Arthur Blank, he was the co founder of Home Depot and a
Mm.
very dynamic leader. He bought the Falcons. And so working for him for that length of time, it really was very diverse and dynamic because he started so many different businesses. I mean, it's a whole
Yeah.
family of businesses.
Yeah.
So yes, I worked for the Atlanta Falcons, but I was able to work across several industries, even just working for him. Kind of the highlight, I guess, would be when we opened Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is a
Yeah.
really awesome stadium here in Atlanta. And I feel like I got a PhD from that experience because,
I
yeah, it
bet.
was just, yeah, how do you hire 4,000 people? And then how do you inspire 4,000 people on
Yeah.
day one that they're going to kind of want to run through a brick wall for you?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So 4 years ago, I took a big leap of faith and I started my own business. I think I have that in my blood from my dad. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I've enjoyed it. I'm basically just taking everything that I learned, mainly from Arthur and just from that entire journey, and helping small businesses on the HR side of things.
Yeah. And the name of your business,
Oh, yes, it's called Beyond Culture. Yes.
which speaks in and of itself. I mean, if you follow Karen on LinkedIn, which I highly recommend,
Oh,
you always have such cool things that you post on there. It's always about culture, and you're doing
mhm.
some pretty unique things with businesses right now, which is pretty awesome. But you learned a lot during the Falcons rollout that you use now with businesses and your clients, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think mainly the big picture of what I learned from my journey with the NFL is just the importance of running a business with sort of an operating system that is the core values,
Yeah.
figuring out what your true core values are and then operating your business day to day based on those.
Yeah. It's the same thing we do like in the business strategy world. It's like find your
Mhm.
purpose. Like,
Mhm.
who are you designed to be as a person, as a team, as an organization, and getting back to that before you even like start down any type of
Mhm.
strategy or cultural fit or
Yeah.
hiring or whatever it is. If you don't start there, you're just kind of like bringing random people in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree with that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
let's start talking a little bit about interviewing skills because remember, like most of the people that will view this are small organizations, they're small businesses, and every hire counts. And I know we say that in corporate. You and I have gotten to do a lot of big corporate work, but in small business, it truly is every hire counts. One hire can really hurt your business. It can also really help your business go to the next level. And so we'll start it off really simple. We're going to give you an easy question here to
Thank
start.
you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Which, by the way, like for the audience to know, like Karen and I got to do some fun work. Like, what it was like. I guess it's been 2 or 3 years ago.
Mhm.
In change management, which was really cool. But
Mhm.
it's Karen's just. I think you're always this even keel, level-headed person that you always bring such like a good, calm personality to things, and
Yeah.
the smile is real. The smile is real. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, anyways, here's the first question. This is an easy one for you. Okay, you ready? Why? This is actually hard, but why does interviewing really matter?
hmm I think it really matters because if you think about it, I think across all industries, it
Mhm.
really doesn't matter what industry you're in. Your most important asset is the team, the
Yeah,
people, because they're the ones that breathe life into the day to
yeah,
day. And so they're the ones that are going to execute on your strategy.
yeah.
And so, and I do think back to my time in particular with the Atlanta Falcons, that was being around a group of people that were really talented, very talented people. And they were kind of in their dream job, right?
Sure.
And so when you have a group of people that's everyone's pretty talented, everyone's pretty passionate, everyone's pretty inspired, they all want
Mhm.
to get up in the morning and run to work because they're just so connected to the purpose.
Yeah,
Not only are you going to have great execution of your business strategy, but they're going to take things beyond what you could
yeah,
even imagine. So that's
yeah.
actually why I named my business Beyond Culture.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So interviewing, yeah, it takes time and, it can be taxing. But I think really using that allotted time that you have with the candidate, it's very important because that's going to determine the degree, the success of your business. And there's a kind of a funny quote that a lot of people have heard of, but it's culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yes, I
So
love
it's
that
a
quote.
yeah, it's a funny quote. At first, I was like, "What the heck does that even mean?" But
Yeah,
I think what it means is that when you have this group of talented people, they're all kind of like minded. They're there for the right reasons. They're going to collaborate. They're
mhm,
going to innovate. They're going to do amazing things, and that's really it becomes like a culture. So culture eats strategy for
yeah,
breakfast. If you have a super positive culture, that's going to propel your strategy
yeah,
forward. But if
yep,
you don't, it's really the opposite. You might have the smartest strategy of anyone, all your
yeah.
competitors. But if you don't have a healthy culture, it's kind of cut off at the knees.
It's interesting you say that because that's literally like an hour before this, I was just presenting on a very similar topic. Like, you can have the
Oh,
best strategy in the world,
yeah.
and it really doesn't matter if you don't have people like that
Oh,
can do it.
funny.
And honestly, even as leaders, like if we as leaders are
Mm-hmm.
not healthy ourselves, if we as leaders aren't doing the right things and building the right culture and I mean, I can come up with a game plan all day long. It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I love that. So how do you, in your world, and you've hired so many, you've helped people hire so many, and
Mm-hmm.
you've like consulted with people to hire people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how do you consult with them to look for those types of things so that they build the right culture versus just finding experience? Because I think a lot of like managers or leaders, they're interviewing just for skills. Like, I want to see that your resume has X, Y, and Z on it, or they've maybe been taught to like, give me your strengths or your weaknesses or whatever that is. But
Yeah, exactly.
how do you consult with people? How do you coach them to do that?
Yeah, I think on the front end, that and learning about the organization and learning about the role is time well spent. So
Mhm.
I'd put it in a few buckets. Part of when you're interviewing a candidate is really just simply, are they going to enjoy this type of job? Like,
Yeah,
what's unique about the job? Maybe you're traveling all the time.
yeah,
Well, some people love that and some people hate that,
yeah,
or maybe it's mostly commission. Some
yeah,
people would not like that. Others would
sure.
thrive in that environment. So, what are the practical aspects of the job? You don't want to skip that part. It's like, hey, we work really late all the time, or whatever.
Yeah,
Like, just
right.
be honest about that because you just don't want that's turnover later. So
Yeah,
that put that aside, and then yes, of course, there are skills and competencies. If you're hiring a graphic designer, There's a certain number of technical skills there, or if you're hiring an accountant, obviously
Yeah.
you got to have a
Right.
really good list of skills.
Hmm.
And then I think the part that I'm most passionate about is what I referenced earlier about values of the organization. It's kind of an overused term, but honestly, if you think about what sets your organization apart, there's something
Hmm.
unique that you as the business owner of, even just like how you treat your customers.
Hmm.
The owner probably has some really strong convictions in that area. Like, this is how
Right.
we treat our customers.
Yeah.
Well, whatever that is, let's interview on that. Let's go find people that think the same way, or
Hmm.
that, regarding customers. Or you may have strong beliefs about how the team's going to work together,
Yeah.
and whatever that is, like, that's a core value. So let's go find people that have worked in environments before where the team worked together in that way. So
Hmm.
drilling into those core values, or even just work ethic and these things,
Yeah.
like, these are the things that I think set a business owner on fire. It's like, we really need, we
Yeah.
really need people that do this, or we really need people like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's build some questions around those core values.
Yeah, I was just talking to a client and friend, actually earlier this week about this very thing. They need their mini me. So it's the business owner, and they're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"We need like our mini me."
Yeah.
And they were thinking about promoting from within, and they went
Uh-huh.
through their team. And I said, "Well, wait, hold on, time out. Like, let's
Mm-hmm.
pull back. What does a mini me actually look like? And let's talk everything from your competencies, which I know we've talked about in another session, to,
Mm-hmm.
like what skill sets do they need?" And then the owner, husband said, "Well, hold on, time out. Like, there's another big piece of this, which,"
Mm.
and I'm going to look over at my whiteboard here really quick. He wrote down 5 words that were his values, and it was the
Oh,
values of their business. And he says, "I get the competencies and I get the skill set,
yeah.
but if they don't line up to these values, I don't even know if I want them." And
Mm.
I mean, he was very clear, like, these are the things, and they're a nonprofit organization. And so they were very firm on it. We have to have these values. And so before you knew it, they had whiteboarded the ideal
Yeah.
candidate. And they said, just, I mean, they just got another building and they're expanding their locations and growing, hence the need for a mini me.
Mm-hmm.
But as they're doing that, we had the conversation of, you have to be very intentional with your hire too. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
can't, just like you're going out and looking for a building, and you don't want like a building that's it is 1,500 square feet, and then you find something that's 5,000 square feet. Like, you got to
Mm-hmm.
find it. If they need certain kind of plumbing or different things, like, you would
Mm-hmm. Same
never
thing.
like buy a building that doesn't fit your needs. Yet we hire
Mm-hmm.
people that don't fit our needs all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's
Quick
that value is super
story.
big.
Yeah, quick story on that. There was a moment in Arthur Blank, who is the gentleman I mentioned. He's the co-founder of Home Depot and the owner of the Falcons. When he wanted to replace himself, because he really wanted to step back a little bit and
Yep.
not be as involved in the day to day. Well, I mean, he had a slate of candidates. They were all awesome, from a
Yeah.
strategic standpoint, but it was 5 rounds of interviews with him on separate
Oh
occasions
my
to
gosh.
interview for values. Because if you think about it, I mean, that's his whole way of thinking and
Yeah.
behaving. You have to almost find your clone.
Yeah. It's your legacy too.
Yeah, yeah,
Because otherwise, like, it doesn't matter what competencies you have, if they're not latched in to what you believe,
yeah.
like, it
It
can change
permeates
quick.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah, it can change quick. So when you're asking questions like this, and you're digging, because interviewing, most people have their generic questions that they ask, or they're doing their different stuff. Like, what's like a bad question you should like you should never ask in an interview, and why? Like, why should we not
yeah,
ask this question?
yeah. I don't know if it's all that extreme, but I guess a couple that I don't love. One would be, what would you do if? Hey, candidate, what would you do if a customer came in to talk
Huh.
with you and they were really angry? Well, now
Hmm.
you're in a hypothetical realm,
Yeah.
of somebody can be super creative and think, okay, well, what would I do?
Yeah.
I think that's interesting, maybe, but
Yeah.
not if you're going to ask that question, just ask it slightly different, which
Yeah.
is more, tell me a story about a time in the past when you successfully dealt
Wow.
with an angry customer. That's a totally different question.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever seen a hiring manager ask some questions that were probably not compliant?
Oh, yeah, I guess so. And it's with good intent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to know this individual. I want to know about this. And somebody in your personal life, you might say, "Hey, how many kids do you have?" Or, who takes care of the kids? Or are they in
Yeah.
daycare? Or, going down that personal realm where those wouldn't be appropriate in the interview,
Yeah.
because then you're getting into, protected categories and things like that. So
Mhm.
I think it's just like, that's what I love about asking questions about past behavior, is you're never going to get in trouble doing that. Just stick to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. How many interviews do you think you've done in your career?
Oh, you know what? I don't know, but one of my favorite things, I mean, I'm sure it's in thousands, big number,
Yeah.
but I love it. I love it when somebody, they're like a VP now, but I was involved in hiring them as an intern decades
Yeah.
ago. Oh, I'm like a part
Is
of
this
their
the person I
story.
know?
Yes, like
Yes.
we're like connected forever. So
Yeah.
I love
Which is
that.
funny because I think I was her boss, but she originally hired me. So she was my boss
Oh
first.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's just
yeah.
full circle all the time, you know?
Yeah, I love those little connections because it's such a high emotional moment for the candidate and the new
Yeah.
hire. And being able to call somebody and tell them, you got the job, all that stuff. You're like a part of their story.
Their journey. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's interesting that actually came up, and this was unscripted and unplanned here, but like I always tell people, treat people really well, not just for obviously your values and your purpose and who you are, but like you never know who's going to be your boss.
Oh
Um,
yeah, wow, right?
like
Yeah,
right, like I
tricky.
actually yeah, like I've had people that like I used to work for that I became theirs, or vice versa. Like
Wow.
yeah, right. And if it's done well, you actually start at the interview process is like that first interaction. And business owners don't think, oh well, someday they could be my boss because I'm the boss. You never know how life takes you, and someday you may want to step down, and they may be the CEO that takes over your company. You have no idea.
Yeah, they have
I
great
know that
point.
I've seen that happen, right? Like where they're
Yeah,
the CEO that takes over the company, and yes, you're still like the owner of the business, but like they're running the show for you. And the trust that is built in that process starts right at the interview.
that's
Yeah.
interesting. Yep, yep. You never
Yeah, it's
know.
crazy. So,
Mhm.
tell me the worst experience you ever had hiring someone and how it started. Think back. I mean, because you've done thousands of these. Like someone that you hired that you wish you'd have done things a little different in the interview, if you would have asked things maybe a little differently or probed a
Mhm.
little bit more, what did
Mhm.
that look like and why did it get to the point that it did?
Yeah, I think the first one that pops in my mind is hiring for putting too much weight on their ability to move the needle for the company. Like from a
Mm,
technical standpoint, there was a woman that I think we just collectively put too much emphasis on what could she do for us, like almost salivating at her portfolio, and like,
yeah,
oh, we really need that.
yeah,
And wow, just imagining the impact. And not that she didn't have those abilities, she did, but on the core value side, not very collaborative, not very humble. Um, the behavior that we saw, after
yeah,
she was on board was just like, wow, we just put too much emphasis. We fell in love
yeah,
with the dream.
yeah,
So it's really that culture eat strategy for breakfast.
yeah.
If you see signals of that, even though it's an attractive thing from a technical
Mhm.
standpoint, you got it's like the salesperson that sells the most, but they
Yeah.
make a million enemies in the process. Nobody wants to
But
work
it
in a
hurts. Yeah.
company where they're surrounded by people who are toxic or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
It's true. Have you ever read the book The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni?
I love Patrick and Lencioni. I think I
Figured
did a
you would.
workshop. I think I did a workshop based on that book. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
years
he
ago.
talks about that. What you just mentioned reminded me of it because there's like the first half of the book, he talks about it's almost like a story format. He's such a good
Mhm.
author
Oh,
and
I know.
so good with
Fables.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he told a story of someone, a CEO that was trying to change the culture, and they were doing it with hiring, and they were looking for certain types of people,
Hmm.
and they went through and they hired from a experience perspective but
Hmm.
not the values perspective. And what they stepped back and looked for was the humility, someone that was hungry, someone that was humble, someone that was
Hmm.
smart. And you could have someone that was hungry and smart, but they weren't humble, and it could destroy it. Or you could
Yeah.
have someone that was humble but didn't have the smart or the hungry. And
Yeah.
so like, he kind of pulled it all together. But that reminded me a lot of that. Like you can
Hmm.
have the most experienced person in the world, and they could destroy
Hmm.
your company
Yeah, absolutely.
so quick, so
Hmm.
quick.
Yeah.
So I know today with your clients, you do a lot of HR and culture work, obviously, and
Hmm.
some recruiting goes into that. But how do you, with someone that's already been hired and they've already got that skill set? This is a little out of the interviewing skill sets, but like you've already
Hmm.
made the hire, you've got them there. You're finding out they weren't really what you thought they were going to be. How do you
Hmm.
coach people on that today? Like
Yeah.
what to do with that?
Well, I have a process. It's called a values check-in,
Okay.
and it's kind of like a custom design tool to
Hmm.
where there's a two-way conversation
Hmm.
on a periodic basis between the manager and the team member on the values. So it's not like corny, like, but more like organic conversation of how
Yeah.
are things going, but it's
Yeah.
and how can I, as your manager, help you remove obstacles,
Sure.
just healthy two-way conversation. But
Yeah.
anyways, because it's rooted in the values, if somebody is off the mark, it's going to bring that into the conversation. And so I
Mm.
think that's one of the leader's most important roles, is to connect and to have conversation and to say, hey, like, these are the behaviors I'm seeing,
Hmm.
and this is the impact that that's having. And you could coach somebody perhaps, and I guess if somebody wasn't humble, it might be hard to make them humble. I don't know, but you can give them a chance. You
It's kind of a
can,
life change at that point, right? If
yeah,
they're not hungry, they're not hungry, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
rebirth or something. But anyways,
yeah,
it's sometimes managers are completely fine with giving feedback, and sometimes
mm,
they're not, because maybe they're busy doing other things, it's a crazy day, or it might not feel like a comfortable thing to do. But I think it's really important because, again, I think back to my experiences in the past when I was on a team where it was just infectiously wonderful.
yeah,
It's a great place to be. Like, it's very
yeah,
innovative and positive, and but it's can be the opposite when you keep somebody who is
yeah,
not a fit from a values perspective. It can be cancerous to the entire team,
yeah,
because talented people want to be around talented people, and inspired people and passionate. Like, it's all kind of, you want to have that mixture.
yeah. I have learned that valuable lesson a couple times. Actually, I had a small business 7 or 8 years ago, and I had a very talented person, but I mean, really talented person. Should have been second in command, but attitude was just really, really difficult.
Mhm.
And I made the mistake of promoting him to be second in command. And I watched my culture just get eaten alive. Like my
Mhm.
strategy literally got eaten for lunch,
For lunch.
And so,
Yeah.
and it was terrible. I should have probed a lot more. I should have been looking for a lot more, which kind of like leads me to the question of like, it's great to talk about values and like interviewing for these things, but like what types of questions do you typically ask to try to get some of that out in an interview?
Hmm. Yes. So they're called behavioral based, but basically it's just asking for a story. So I love for interviewers to simply think of themselves as story collectors.
Mm,
So when you are interviewing somebody, make it a goal to get at least 4 or 5 stories. So if I
interesting.
take that previous example about the angry customer, it could be, tell me about a time when you were dealing with an angry customer,
Mm,
and you were pleased with the way that you navigated that, something like that. So if you
sure.
ask that question, It's then giving them a pause because it takes a second to think of a question like or a story like
Yeah.
that. Making the environment comfortable to where they can think of one on the spot. They tell
Yeah.
you the story. And then the reason that's valuable is because that's the best predictor of how they're going to perform in the future.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, like that's what the interview is you're trying to predict how
Yeah.
would this person perform on my team or
Yeah.
behave on my team. And you won't really be able to predict that based on the hypothetical.
Yeah.
Or I do remember being very young and asking my dad, okay, dad, what do I say? I know they're going to ask me my strengths and weaknesses. And we decided that I would say I'm a perfectionist, for the weakness one. Like
Right.
yeah, thanks, dad.
Yeah.
But it's like worthless information,
Yeah.
so because anybody can make that up. They're like rehearsed answers. And so one of the things I do in my business is I write interview guides that are behavioral based questions. So
Mm.
again, you're getting stories, you're collecting stories, and they're rooted in the company's core values. So if you collect 4 or 5 or 6 really solid stories that kind of have like a
Mm.
beginning, a middle, and an end, oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's interesting. Oh, what happened next?
Yeah.
How did that
Interesting.
turn out? What did the customer say? So
Yeah.
if you collect these full loop stories, then you're like, okay, I need to pick between these 3 candidates. And
Yeah.
if you've collected stories on all three,
You
you're
can
probably
see
gonna be able
something.
to pick the one that's going to be the best fit.
Yeah. I've never heard someone call it stories, collecting stories. That's like one of the coolest things ever.
Mm-hmm.
It's so simple, but
Yeah.
you're trying to like learn about their past and their
Yeah.
stories and like what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, there's so much in there.
Oh, thanks. Good.
Yeah. So I found I'm probably the worst interviewer in the world. I love to
No, you
Did I
interviewed
ever
me.
interview you?
Yes, I do remember it. Yes. Yes.
You remember my interview with you?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Well, one of my questions is going to be, "What's your best interview?" And so that better be it, right?
Right. Right.
No, I am. I think I call myself one of the worst because I will look at someone's resume very briefly. I feel like
Mm.
most people can make up a resume. They can make anything look good. I mean, especially with AI now, you can make anything look good. But I will take a look at it just to see like a little bit of their background. But usually, it's to create what you're talking about, stories. I will use that as my entry point to ask questions about their past and what type of experience that they have, but I read the room. So I will sit in an interview and I'm gauging my audience, like reading the room. Can you talk a little bit about that? I may or may not, or should not do that, but I'm looking for body language, not just answers to questions. I'm
Mhm.
also looking to see if things line up to what I saw in a resume. But
Mhm.
body language is a lot to me in an interview. I can tell a lot by someone's personality right there. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that and how you might use that in an interview?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts on that. One of this will probably make you laugh, but the other day I was interviewing somebody on a Zoom call, and she's in her living room. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad. I try to use Zoom and not do the phone
Yep.
because why not?
Face to face, right?
I can see the
Yeah.
environment, and it's a rich picture. Well,
Yep.
anyways, she had a couple dogs, and awesome, love dogs, but she allowed them throughout the interview to crawl up in her lap and lick her face while she was
Oh
talking
my
to
gosh.
me. It's just like I mean, you would just never predict it, right?
Yeah.
So if I would have talked to her on the phone, would have
Yeah.
never known that, and otherwise it wasn't the best interview anyways, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I will
Do we get
also
name, phone number, all of that? No, you're not gonna share.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like,
No. Yeah.
so the other one that it's a very interesting example, and that was when we did hire 4,000 people for the stadium. The body language point that you're making, I'll share a little bit about that because I think it is sort of transferable to multiple industries. We constructed like a group interview process,
Mm.
and we did this very strategically. We had it, like it was an event, and we
Yeah.
invited people. So let's say there was like maybe 8 people. all sitting next to each other in chairs, and we asked some questions, but we were really not necessarily listening exactly to their answers, but we were
Wow.
more looking for how they were behaving with each other. So
Interesting.
one of the things we did as an example is we said, get to know the person sitting next to you, and
Yeah.
then introduce your neighbor to the rest of us. And we were looking for
Wow.
how generous they were in their description of their neighbor, as opposed to it being all about me, me, me,
Yeah.
And we even asked
Wow.
some, I know, we even asked some kind of silly questions. Again, this is hospitality at a stadium. We were looking for spark. And so we
Yeah.
asked some very silly questions, but we were looking for sense of humor and warmth,
Yeah.
So I do think it's about the stories, yes,
Mhm.
but I also agree with what you're saying. It's the whole picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had someone once tell me that, going back to your silly question thing, um, they're like, the worst interview question you should ever ask, and it was a silly one, but they're like, if you were a brick in any house, which brick would you be and why?
Oh,
And
cool.
which I thought was actually kind of a cool question. I've actually used it in some like very
Yeah.
professional, like these are very
Yeah.
like highly paid individuals. And we get to the end. I don't use it as
Let's look
like a
at your
serious.
personality. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta bring in the personality with it, and I would ask it at the end, but fascinating enough, I have never had someone answer the question, and I didn't learn something about them. Even though it was
Right.
like a joke interview question, and I
Yeah.
would let them know, "I'm gonna tell you this interview
Yeah.
question," so they're not, like, nervous
Yeah.
about it, but, like, I will ask you the question,
Mhm.
Karen, if you were the brick in any house, which
Oh,
brick would you be and why?
I want to be. I've been kind of analyzing the front of my house lately, and
Yeah,
like from a decorative standpoint. So I'll be on the front porch,
okay.
and I'll be when people come up. I want to be right there by the window boxes with the flowers. So just kind of
Really?
making the front of the house appealing.
Wow, I've never heard that. Why though? Why?
That's kind of the entry point. That's where people come in, and I want to be welcoming to other people.
See, and that tells so much. Like that's what I mean. It's kind of like this oddball question,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's totally you, and it totally makes sense. I've had people be like, "I don't want to be seen. I want to be in the basement, and I want
I'll
to
be
be like
in
the
the
foundation,"
dungeon.
which I'm like, is great for an IT person that is
Oh,
like
that's funny.
working on a server or something like that,
Yeah.
But you don't want your salesperson being like, "I want to be in the basement," in the
That's so
corner.
funny. I love it. I love
So,
that.
yeah, it's kind of a fun little question, but all right,
Mhm.
my last question, and then we'll wrap up. But if for all these business owners that are going to hear this, or at some point they might see different pieces of this, what's one piece of advice that you would give them as they're learning how to interview? Maybe they think they know how to interview, but they need to get a little bit better at it or whatever, or maybe they're just looking for that one piece of advice from someone who's been doing it for years, for the Atlanta Falcons, by the
Mhm.
way. Like,
Mhm.
who gets to ever talk to that person?
Mhm.
But what would be one piece of advice you would give a business owner when they're interviewing?
Mhm. Just relax. It's really
Yeah,
not about being an expert. It's not
yeah,
about being an HR expert. It's really just about being curious. It's
yeah.
curious about another human being. And
Mm,
let's say you have about 45 minutes or so, or 30 minutes, whatever you're allowing for this conversation. You want to maximize the time,
yeah,
and so make sure the
yeah,
candidate is talking 80% of the time.
yeah,
We've seen that where, it's the interviewer that's occupying all the time, but you're really not using that 45 minutes to learn
yeah,
some really important information about the candidate.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it's don't get wrapped up in being perfect or technical with it, but just be
mhm,
curious and collect stories. That's fun. That's
yeah,
interesting to hear stories about
yeah.
somebody's past. It's pretty cool stuff.
That's why I love that you call it storytelling, because I'm sitting here thinking like it takes the pressure off of interviewing, because it really, what it does is you are caring about someone else.
Mm-hmm,
You're
mm-hmm,
learning about them. And even if they're not the right fit, you learn so much about people. And I just love people.
mm-hmm,
I love learning their stories. I love learning their background.
mm-hmm.
I love the fact that you said relax. I can't believe that that's the word you use. I think a lot of people, I remember my first interviews that I was doing where I gave the interview, I was so nervous,
Hmm.
which means if I'm nervous, guess who else is nervous? The candidate.
Right.
Right. Like,
Well,
so I usually try to like break the ice and make it,
yeah,
fun and
of course.
relaxing, and you
Yeah.
smile big, and there's like,
Mm.
it just changes it. People will enter the interview different. And I have found like I've actually had some really good candidates that they were interviewed by someone that didn't interview them well, but they
Mhm.
were amazing candidates. But because they were interviewed bad, they didn't show their full self.
Yeah.
And then when I met them, I was like, this person's amazing. Like
Yeah.
they've got a great history. They've got a great personality,
Hmm.
which also told me a little bit about the person. But I think that relaxing piece and then
Hmm.
caring about their stories is so
Yeah.
big.
Yeah. And
So
if
big.
if if a business owner is really more of a salesperson,
Mhm.
think of it as sales too, because once you've selected the candidate, it's about closing the sale. Like,
Yeah, right.
it's not a foregone conclusion that they're going to say yes.
Yeah,
So it's you have to build
yeah,
trust
yeah,
spend quality time with them and present a compelling offer.
yeah,
So it's really more about the candidate closing process too.
yeah. That's interesting. I think that'll be our last point here because I said the last one was, but this you just said something really big. Um, it used to be, at least in my head, it used to be that because I was the interviewer, I had this upper hand, but you don't. Like talent is hard to come by, and the best
Hmm.
talent is interviewing you just as much as you're
Yes.
interviewing them.
Yes.
And that goes back to the relaxing, drawing stories out and having conversation.
Hmm.
They care, they're watching. Good
Yeah.
talent is watching.
Don't make them wait half hour. Don't be late to that interview. Like
Oh my
you're,
gosh. Isn't that crazy?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to show them as much respect as they're showing me,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Hmm.
awesome.
Hmm.
Well, Karen, thank you. This is so awesome. There's going to be so many people that I'm going to be recommending watch this. Even people in my client list, like
Oh,
go
good.
take a look at this. But just to like do a shameless plug again for you and your business. Can you just tell us your business name? Here's the other thing I need though. How do they get a hold of you if
Hmm.
they want to get a hold of you?
It's easy. So my business is Beyond Culture,
Mhm.
but my website is my name. So it's KarenWalters.com. So
Awesome.
you can go there and check it out. But basically, I'm a fractional human resources person, which
Mhm.
simply means I provide HR support, really the full spectrum of HR, from
Mhm.
HR compliance to those handbooks or policies
Yeah.
or employment law, all of that stuff. But then also, how can we create a great work environment where
Mhm.
you're attracting top talent and they want to stay? And so, on the culture side. So
Awesome.
it's fractional is awesome because you're getting really just what you need, which is a fraction
Mhm.
of my time at
Yeah.
a reasonable price. So,
Yeah. That's
mhm.
awesome. And I
Mhm.
would just for everyone, I would recommend Karen so much day in and day out. Like we've had the chance to work with each other, and there are some people that like come on screen and you're like great personality, and then behind the scenes they aren't the same person. Like Karen, you are the same person
Mhm.
everywhere, and I just love working with you, and I love your heart and your passion and your vision.
Thank
And
you.
I know
Likewise.
we share similar circles, so like that those circles are fun to work in, but
Mhm.
similar values inside those circles too. So
Yeah, all the best. Thank you, Dave.
yeah, thank you, Karen. All right,
Mhm.
thank you, everyone. We'll see you on the next episode.